各位听众朋友们，大家晚上好，我是海东。今天的主题讲座将由我来为大家主持。本次讲座的主办方是爱家网，爱家网是一个位于纽约服务华人家庭的新媒体。我们不定期的邀请各个领域的生活达人做讲座，分享他们的专业知识和生活经验，希望可以帮助华人家庭更好地融入美国社会。我们也十分欢迎在自己的领域中有所建树，而且愿意帮助他人的朋友们自荐，成为爱家网下一期的主题讲座嘉宾。欢迎大家关注爱家网的公众号北美爱家，获得下期讲座的信息。今天是爱家网主题讲座的第25期，这期节目我们请来了 Jennifer Zhao。 Jennifer 5岁来美国，后来进入常春藤学校宾夕法尼亚大学沃顿商学院，毕业后就职于华尔街投行，从事私募基金的管理，并利用业余时间做升学咨询。现在 Jennifer 全职帮助高中生进入理想的大学。本次讲座为英文，为了方便大家，在讲座之后 Jennifer 也会为大家提供中文大纲。欢迎大家邀请自己的孩子们一起收听 Jennifer 分享她的成长经历。今晚的讲座将向13个爱家网教育群和下笔如有神专家讲座1群的朋友们直播，预计将有将近7000人可以收听到。今晚主题讲座的内容仅代表嘉宾本人的观点，不代表爱家网的立场。下面我们就把时间交给 Jennifer 做今天的主题讲座，我的常春藤道路。
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in on our seminar tonight. My name is Jennifer Zhao, and today I am here to discuss with you my personal journey from coming to America as a first-generation immigrant to attending UPenn's Wharton Business School to eventually working on Wall Street. I hope to share the various insights that I've garnered through my experiences and the lessons that I've learned along the way. In today's seminar, I will discuss two main things. First, I will be discussing my journey and the lessons that I learned about high school planning. Second, I will be discussing how you can package your college applications in order to stand out. For the audience members out there who can only speak Chinese, I will be posting a Chinese transcript at the end of this seminar. I came to America from China at the age of 5, and when I first came, the language barrier was the hardest thing. I still remember how, before the first official day at my new American school, my mom took me to the classroom to show me where the bathroom was, because otherwise I wouldn't even be able to tell the teacher that I needed to use the restroom. And that's how little English I knew at the time. When the first day of school rolled around, I was extremely nervous. I saw all the other kids excitedly bopping towards the school bus, while I was too afraid to even let go of my grandfather's hand. And during that first day of school, I felt so overwhelmed by the new language, the new culture, the new people, that I cried in class. But that was the first and the last time that I ever cried in class. Because when I went home that day, I felt so embarrassed by what happened that I decided that I would use all of my effort to learn English. Slowly but steadily, through weekly ESL classes and reading a lot on my own, my English skills improved. And as I progressed through elementary school and into middle school, my love for reading and writing developed exponentially. Every weekend, my parents would take me to the library where I would stock up on a huge pile of books to read during the week. I can't even remember or count the number of hours I'd spend in my room reading books and writing down my own thoughts and impressions. I was constantly writing and rewriting, always reviewing and reflecting on my thoughts. And I love the challenge of turning my ambiguous ideas into concrete pieces of art. In looking back on my writing journals, I noticed the steady upward progression of my writing over time. Initially, the ideas were pretty simple, but over time, the logical flow of my thoughts, the clarity of the writing, and the depth of the analysis became much more apparent. And it was through writing a lot that I became better at dissecting information and reassembling the lump of different ideas into a more coherent and concise stream of thoughts. Essentially, it was through writing a lot that I began developing my critical thinking abilities. And being able to think critically, analyze information, and find creative solutions to problems. That has been the number one most useful skill to me and helping me work through all of the challenges in life. Specifically, I believe that being a good writer helped me get into Wharton because my essays were really good, and the essay component of the college application is one of the most important parts, which I will discuss this in more detail later on in the seminar. So as I entered high school, I knew that I wanted to go to an Ivy League school. And in order to do this, I really needed to critically think through all of the small steps that would be required in order to achieve that final goal. So, for example, in terms of academics, I really needed to think through things such as AP classes, SAT-1 or ACT tests, SAT-2 exams. I also needed to think through which extracurricular activities should I do and how should I do them. So a lot of parents think that there's one right path to get into a top college. For example, if you do XYZ classes and you get XYZ test scores and do XYZ extracurricular activities, that you will definitely get into a top school. But that's not the case at all. The most important thing is actually finding what you're passionate about and what makes you unique and creating a customized strategy around that. Because by developing your passion into something that's very, very substantial, you'll be able to stand out from the rest of the crowd. For me, as I continued through high school, my passion for writing continued as it helped me work through a lot of the academic, extracurricular, and social questions that I faced. For example, whenever I was unsure about what to do, I would always write down my thoughts and my strategy, because by turning my ambiguous thoughts into concrete writings, I was able to better organize my ideas and find logical, creative solutions. And using this method, I was able to think through and overcome a lot of different challenges. And step by step, small accomplishments turned into bigger accomplishments. The day that I was accepted into Wharton was one of the best days of my life. So, as I discussed earlier, I think one of the most important reasons why I got into Wharton was because my essays were very well written. And for most top schools, they really value the essay component more than grades and test scores, because everyone who gets their foot into the door at top colleges, they all have excellent grades and excellent test scores. And therefore, the only way you can differentiate yourself is through your essays and how well you package your college applications. And I will discuss the college application and the essay component in much more detail later on in the seminar. So after high school, I moved to Philadelphia to attend UPenn's Wharton Business School. And I still remember that first day stepping onto campus and feeling so excited. And in many ways, the Wharton education exceeded my expectations. It's true that the professors are incredibly engaging and insightful. It's also true that the facilities are state-of-the-art. But I think what made Wharton the incredible learning experience that it was the students, my peers, my friends. And for the first time in my life, I felt like a small fish in a huge pond, because everyone there was incredibly intelligent and incredibly motivated. So the question is, how do all these type A kids adjust to this new environment? Well, the first class that all Wharton freshmen are required to take is Management 100. This class doesn't actually teach you any hard skills like financial modeling or accounting or whatnot. Instead, the purpose of this class is to teach you soft skills, like how do you work in a team? How do you communicate with others? How do you develop your leadership abilities? In this course, I worked in a group of 10 students in which we created and executed a strategic solution for a local Philadelphia business. The reason Wharton requires you to take this class from the get-go is because it sets the foundation and the tone for the rest of your classes. Most of the classes in Wharton are group project-based. In other words, you will work within a team of 2 to 5 other kids in completing projects and assignments. While Wharton certainly does an excellent job at teaching hard skills like financial modeling and accounting, The reality is that the fundamental concepts of finance and accounting and whatnot, they're pretty much the same everywhere. What makes Wharton unique, I believe, is its ability to foster an environment that forces you to develop your critical thinking and analytical abilities. Because when you're surrounded by other incredibly talented kids, you can really only compete if you learn how to think critically, how to analyze information, and turn it into concrete, actionable plans. In other words, you can really only compete if you learn to think smarter. After graduating from Wharton, I moved to New York City to work in finance. And my first job was at Citi, where I worked in the real estate private equity group. And within this group, I worked directly with my manager in doing both project level financial analysis as well as manager underwriting. So we'd source and evaluate commercial real estate development deals across all the major property types, including multifamily, hotel, office, retail, and industrial. And we generally focus on deals located in first-tier cities across the U.S. and select secondary markets. I was at Citi for approximately 3 years before moving to another private equity firm called Clayton, Dubilier & Rice, or CD&R. CD&R is a more traditional private equity firm that invests in various healthcare, industrial, consumer, and business service companies. At CD&R, I worked with my manager in raising their new flagship Fund 10, which ended up totaling over $10 billion. And while I was working at these financial companies, I was also helping my friends strategically plan their high school careers in terms of academics, standardized tests, and extracurriculars. I was also helping them package their profiles during the college application process so that they were able to stand out through their essays, recommendation letters, resumes, and interviews. Many of the kids that I've worked with have achieved great results. Many of them have been accepted into Ivy League schools such as Yale, UPenn, Brown, as well as other top colleges such as Duke, Rice, Carnegie Mellon. Some of them have even gotten into various BSMD programs. And for those of you out there who may be unfamiliar with the BSMD program, this is essentially a combined undergraduate and medical school program. So students who can get accepted into this BSMD program in high school are essentially guaranteed to get into medical school as long as they meet basic grade requirements, MCAT score requirements. So with each student that I work with, I help them develop their critical thinking skills by discussing and strategizing with them the step-by-step process required to surpass any challenge, whether it's big or small. For example, a student wants to get an internship, and on the surface level, it seems pretty easy. You just apply for the job. But once you actually start the process, you'll discover a lot of questions and challenges along the way. For example, which industries should you look at? Which companies should you apply to? Who can you contact at these companies? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So by discussing the strategy step by step with the student will not only achieve their goals, but they will also slowly develop these critical thinking abilities themselves. And I think this is the most important thing for long-term success. So through my own experience and the experience of helping many others apply for college, I've learned a few things about the college application process. First, I've learned that it's getting much harder to get into a top college. Over the past 5 years, the rate of admission for every single Ivy League school and Stanford and MIT and these other top schools, they have dropped significantly. So for example, Princeton, 5 years ago, it accepted 7.28%. And this year, it only accepted 5.5%. Similarly, 5 years ago at Harvard, they accepted 5.9%. And today, they only accepted 4.59%. So another example is Cornell. 5 years ago, Cornell accepted 14%. And today, it only accepts 10.3%. That's a 26% decrease in the span of 5 years. In addition to decreasing admission rates, I've also found that it's harder for Asian students specifically to get into top schools. There's policies like affirmative action, which can actually go against Asian students. There's currently a lawsuit that's being filed against Harvard right now, which claims that Harvard discriminates against Asian students. And as part of this lawsuit, there was an internal document created by Harvard that was leaked to the public. And this document showed that Asians were judged more harshly than any other group on personality factors such as courage, compassion, likability, and being respected by their peers. It also found that if academics and test scores were the only criteria used in admissions, Asian Americans would make up 43% of the student body. However, the reality is that Asian students currently only make up 22% of Harvard's student body. So what does this mean for Asian students? It means that, well, it's harder to get into a top college, and it's even harder for an Asian student to get into a top college. So therefore, now more than ever before, it's critical that you can strategically package yourself in the college application process to showcase all of your attributes and accomplishments over the past few years. So let's talk about the specifics of the college application. In the past, kids with perfect SAT scores and were valedictorians of their class could likely get into an Ivy League or other top school. However, today, that's not the case at all. For example, for the incoming freshman class at Princeton, over 90% of those applicants had perfect unweighted GPAs of 4.0, and they were still rejected. And at Stanford, they rejected 69% of students with perfect SAT scores. So what do college admissions officers actually look for then? So in general, at top colleges, 25% of your application's weight is based on your grades, such as your GPA, and your school rank, and the difficulty of the classes that you've taken. The next 25% of your application's weight is based off of your test scores, such as your SAT-1, your ACT test, and your SAT-2 scores. The remaining 50% of your application's weight is based off of your essays, your extracurricular activities, your resume, recommendation letters, and your interview. So obviously, the second 50% is an incredibly important part of your college application. So let's discuss that remaining 50% in more detail. So first, let's talk about your extracurriculars. Top colleges will assign a rating to your extracurricular profile. The students who have the highest extracurricular rating will be able to showcase through their extracurricular activities their deep, genuine love of learning, the strength of their character, and their sense of good judgment. And for the students that I've worked with, I help them create a very strong extracurricular profile by first determining what it is that they're passionate about, and then helping them find ways to develop these passions into something very, very substantial, into very impressive extracurricular activities. And colleges like to see that a student has invested the time to truly develop their passion. The reason is, by developing your passion into something substantial, through this process of doing very well in your activities, you can showcase your love of learning, your ability to find creative solutions to problems, your ability to persevere through challenges, and ultimately to showcase the strength of your character. For the essay, you will be required to first complete the Common App essay, which is used by most schools. And the essay prompt for the Common App is generally pretty broad. It'll generally ask you to describe a meaningful experience or a challenge you've encountered or an event that sparked personal growth or something along those lines. And given that the prompt is purposely constructed to be broad, you can essentially answer the question any way that you'd like. The response that you write in your essay can literally be based on any topic. For example, you can write about a chair, or your knitting hobby, or your grandfather, or a trip that you take. And while the topic itself doesn't matter that much, What matters is the insight and takeaways that you extract from that experience, because colleges are looking to understand your level of intellect and maturity, as well as who you are as a person. Your essay should be extremely memorable because, remember, the admissions officer, they're going to be going through thousands and thousands of essays. And therefore, you need to find a way to make yours stand out. And the way to do this is to make the reader feel something when they read your essay. Maybe your essay is so funny that they laugh, or it's so heartfelt that they cried. Both are good essays because both of them make you memorable. Essentially, after reading your essay, the reader should feel so inspired and excited to meet you in person after reading your essay. The worst kinds of essays are the ones that make the reader feel bored. So in addition to the essays, you will need to create a resume. Most of the students that I've worked with in the past come to me with these huge, long resumes, like 4, 5, 6-page long resumes. Given that I've been interviewed a lot and have interviewed many others while working in finance, I know that nobody will read a resume that's 4, 5, 6 pages long. Therefore, it's crucial to create a resume that's very clean and clear. The format needs to be laid out in a way that clearly showcases each one of your activities, and the reader can easily peruse through the text without having to search for the information. Every single bullet point needs to be crafted to include the most amount of information in the least amount of words. So in addition to the essays and the resumes, many students who apply for top schools will also go through an interview process, either on campus with an admissions officer or off campus with an alumni. It's important to prepare for these interviews beforehand by thinking about what kinds of questions they'll likely ask you. How do you answer these questions? One question that they could ask is, tell me about yourself. This seems like a very general question, right? So in this case, be ready to walk through your resume. Remember, anything that you put on your resume is fair game for the interviewer to ask questions about. You should also think about what questions you should ask them, and generally be prepared with questions for them. In preparing for your interview, you should have an arsenal of information ready so that you can easily pivot through the interview regardless of which direction is taken. So in addition to the actual application, I would recommend students apply for an early decision or early action school. The difference between early decision, also known as ED, and early action, also known as EA, is that ED is binding. And this means that if you get it accepted by the school, you have to go there. On the other hand, early action is non-binding. And this means that if you get accepted, you don't have to commit to the college until the normal reply date in May. There are many benefits to applying early decision and early action. Many top universities fill a large amount of their incoming freshman class through early decision and early action. Furthermore, early decision and early action applicants often compete against a weaker pool of applicants, and therefore, those applicants who are, borderline and, the ones that are waitlisted during the regular decision, they could be actually more likely to be accepted had they applied through early decision or early action. So as we conclude the seminar, I want to summarize the two reasons why I think I got into Wharton and why I think a lot of the students that I've worked with in the past have also gotten into top schools. And I think the first reason is due to long-term planning. So for example, every student that I've worked with, I've helped them create a customized strategy for their academics, their standardized testing, and their extracurricular activities. We focus on finding their passion and developing it into something very substantial so that they can stand out as a very unique candidate during the college application process. I think it's important to remember that top colleges are looking to build a diverse class. They don't want a diverse candidate. So this means every single student they accept, they want to have them be able to offer something unique and something interesting. So therefore, with every student that I've worked with, I try to help them develop their passion and their uniqueness into something substantial by creating actionable plans. I work with them through each step of the process in achieving every single one of their goals, so that in 1, 2, 3 years' time, each one of these small accomplishments ultimately turn into bigger accomplishments. And through this process of helping them achieve their goals, we are constantly reviewing what the student has already done in the past and discussing whether or not we need to modify our strategy going forward. So essentially, through these constant analytical discussions with the student, I also help them develop their own critical thinking and creative problem-solving skills, which I believe is one of the most beneficial skills for long-term success. So the second reason why I think a lot of my students have gone into their top choice school is because I've worked with them in creating really good essays for their college applications. And as we discussed earlier, the essay component of the application is one of the most important parts of your package. I've seen too many students who have, gotten really good grades, really good test scores in high school, and done lots of interesting extracurricular activities. However, because their college essays were not well written, most of them didn't end up getting accepted into their top schools. So in order to prevent this, I spend a lot of time with each one of the students, in strategizing on what to write for the essays and how do you write it so that it's insightful and memorable. Because remember, the reader needs to come away from your essay feeling super, super excited to meet you in person. And if you can write an essay that does that, then you're golden. I will now post the Chinese transcript of the seminar, as well as open the floor and see if there's any questions from the audience.
非常感谢 Jennifer 为大家进行的宝贵分享。下面的时间，大家可以通过文字进行提问。提问时，请使用下面的指令。没有使用正确指令的问题，将可能无法通知主持人安排作答。如果大家可以用英文提问，请使用英文；如果不方便的，也可以使用中文提问。爱家网的工作人员将尽量准确地将你的问题进行翻译。也请 Jennifer 在回答问题的时候，先重复一遍问题再作答。谢谢。在大家准备提交问题的时候呢，我也借此机会公布9月22号，也就是本周六 ，Jennifer 将在布鲁克林的8大道举办一场线下的如何申请顶尖大学的讲座。有兴趣现场咨询 Jennifer 的朋友们，可以留意在讲座最后我公布的活动信息。那下面呢，我首先 post 3个通过公众号文章提交上来的问题。
Thank you so much for posting the questions, and thank you, Jason and Joanne, for this wonderful platform and sharing my experiences. So the first question is, do you like your current job, and how do you help your child find his or her future direction? First of all, I absolutely love this new job. The reason why I had quit my job on Wall Street to do this full time was because I truly wanted to use my own unique experience and the things that I've learned at Wharton and Wall Street to kind of help my Chinese community, because I was once, a Chinese student in high school who aspired to go to a top college, who aspired to have the best education, but I didn't know what that path looked like, and I didn't know how to achieve my goal. So I hope now that I've kind of had this experience and have learned some things along the way, I hope to be able to help a lot of, the kids who were like me, who are from my community. I hope to be able to be a source of insight and a source of information that will be able to help them, figure out what kind of path they want to take in the future as well. Generally, the way that I help students find their passion is to get an understanding of what it is that they like to do, what their strengths are. And from there, we can kind of develop and strategize on different kinds of activities that they can experience, that they can consider and look into. And through this process of experimentation and constantly reviewing and reflecting on what they've done in the past, we can find and develop a better strategy for them going forward so that every single step of the plan leads them closer and closer to their ultimate goals. So the second question is that, from a parent who has a child in the 10th grade, and this child in 10th grade currently doesn't do that much activities. So what can we do to help him participate in more activities and generally find some more direction in his life? So what I would say is that right now he's in 10th grade, and while he doesn't do that many activities, it's okay because generally colleges like to see an upward trajectory. So what does that mean? It means that, let's say the student in 9th grade and 10th grade don't do anything, but then in 11th grade they start to do more, and in 12th grade they do even more. So this is a positive trend line because then colleges can look at this trend line and kind of forecast it out into the future. And as long as this trend line is positive, it's a good sign. I would just like to add that this trend line not only applies for extracurricular activities, but also grades as well. So for example, if your child in 9th grade got like lots of B's and C's, but then in 10th grade they got like B pluses and A minuses, and then in 11th grade they got A's. This is a positive trend line. So even though they got bad grades in 9th grade, it's still okay because colleges see that this student is maturing. They're kind of learning to take responsibility for their own actions, and therefore this is reflected in the upward trajectory of their grades. And this is a very good positive sign. So in terms of how do you help the 10th grader find more direction, I think, again, it's important to kind of understand the child's, fundamental passions. What are they interested in doing? Like, what do they love to do? What are they good at doing? Because you can't really force someone to love and do stuff that they fundamentally don't like to do. So instead of kind of forcing them to do things they don't like to do and are not good at, it could be helpful to find what is it that they actually like to do? What are they actually good at? Whether, are they more qualitative or quantitative? And then using that aspect to kind of create a custom strategy around his strengths and his passions, developing extracurricular activities that play to his personal passions and strengths. So the third question is, can you give some examples of extracurricular activities that kids do to get into top universities? I think there's no list of extracurriculars that you have to do to get into top university. And that's the beauty and the pain of this whole process, because there is no one formula for every student to use in order to get into a top college, because it's kind of like a paradox, right? Because they're trying to look for students who are unique, who have something unique to offer. Therefore, if you're doing activities that every single other student is doing, then you're not truly showing your unique self. And second, it's important to create the package. So whatever it is that you're interested in doing, you can create like a package around that. So for example, if you're interested in science, a lot of kids do a lot of like science Olympiad clubs or math Olympiads. The Olympiads are like a great thing for kids who are interested in the sciences. So again, there's no like one particular list or one particular extracurricular activity that you have to do to get into a top school. But it's really about creating that custom portfolio for your own specific passions and interests and needs. So the next question is, what did you write for your college application essay? One of the essays that I had written was in regards to my passion for art. And art has been something that I've loved to do ever since I was a child. I like to draw, oil paint, pastel, all sorts of mediums. And through my essay, I discussed my passion for art and how it influenced me, how it changed my perspective and how I saw the world. So through this essay, I hope to showcase, what I've learned as well as the kind of person that I became. So the next question is, did I attend public school? And what do I think is the most important thing for elementary school students to kind of lay and kind of cultivate their good study behavior and good work ethic behavior habits? So first, yes, I attended public school from elementary, middle school through high school. And in terms of how do you cultivate your child's work ethic, I think that is definitely an excellent question, and it's going to vary individually by child. Like certain kids are obviously much more self-motivated than other kids. And for the ones who are not naturally self-motivated, that's not necessarily like a bad thing. And I think there can be ways that you kind of encourage them to be a little bit more motivated. And I think one of the things you can do is to give them bandwidth to discover what it is that they like to do. So, instead of kind of forcing them to do every single activity under the sun and, doing every single tutoring activity under the sun as well, to kind of like more generally focus on the aspects in which the child is interested in doing, and also giving them some space to grow and develop. I think for me personally, one of the most helpful things for me as I developed was having the ability to kind of make mistakes, to kind of go and figure things out on my own. I know that as parents, sometimes it's hard to see your child fail or stumble, but I think that's really part of the growing process. To be able to overcome challenges on your own, to be able to fall down and still stand back up with the same perseverance, I think that's incredibly important. So the next question is, did you feel a lot of peer pressure during your study in Wharton? And the question is, yes, there is a lot of pressure at Wharton, because at Wharton, the undergraduate program is essentially 2 years of business school as well as 2 years of liberal arts degrees. So as an undergraduate at Wharton, we were required to take classes both in Wharton, obviously, but also in the College of Arts and Sciences, which is UPenn's liberal arts school. And for me, I definitely felt personally like a difference between the kind of classes that I took within the liberal arts school as well as Wharton. I felt like Wharton students were generally a little more competitive, and I guess that's the nature of kids who are interested in going into business. So there was pressure, but I think it was also like productive pressure. Because through this pressure, it wasn't necessarily all a bad thing. It was really working with students who are, also as motivated as yourself, and they kind of inspired me to work harder and work smarter. So I think at the end of the whole experience, it turned out to be, a really good learning experience because they really helped me develop both personally as well as professionally. So the question is, if a child is good at academics, sports, and arts, but not very outstanding, does it help in admissions? Should he give up some of them and instead just focus on one extracurricular activity? So I think it's important to remember that colleges are looking to build a diverse class. They're not looking for diverse individuals. So they're not, especially top colleges, they're not looking for a student who's sort of like a jack of all trades. So instead, they really want a student who, is pretty good at everything, but especially good at a few things. They like to be able to, point to someone and say, oh yeah, there's the art person, or there's the science person, because when you become experts in a few different areas, you'll be able to offer the other students on campus a unique perspective that other students may not have. The next question is, my kid is in special high school in New York and he's taking enrichment tutoring on the weekends. Do you think it's useful? I think it really depends on specifically what kind of tutoring he's taking. And there's so many different types of tutoring under the sun. You can get tutored literally on every single subject. So again, I think it depends on what it is that he's interested in doing, and does these tutoring sessions kind of propel him in the right direction. So instead of having him being tutored on every single subject under the sun, to really think about strategically, does it actually make sense, like what he's learning, and will it actually be useful for him in his own personal growth and development? So the next question is, of my friends from school, who are the most impressive and unusual students? That's a tough question to answer because all of them are so unique in different ways. Like I have friends who, go the more traditional finance route and work in private equity firms or in investment banking firms. I have other friends who've gone into consulting. I have friends now who have started their own businesses, and as well as other friends who join other startup businesses. So, and then I have friends who do things that are, completely different. They kind of really walked off the beaten path and created their own paths. Essentially, I have had a friend who, works as a consultant traveling around the world. So every single student, like one of my friends, they've all gone off into the world doing something very unique and specific for their own passions. The next question is, did you ever volunteer during high school? Yes, I volunteered a lot at the library because, as you know through my seminar, reading and writing was one of the things that I had enjoyed the most in my life. So the library was a natural place for me to spend a lot of time. So in high school, I also volunteered a lot in the library.
非常感谢大家的积极提问。不过今天的讲座时间已经到了，我们再次感谢 Jennifer 抽出宝贵的私人时间为大家进行了分享。下面我公布一下 Jennifer 本周六在布鲁克林举办线下讲座的活动信息，还有她的个人联络方式。有兴趣向 Jennifer 咨询的朋友们，欢迎私下加她和她联络。爱家网也会尽快将今晚的讲座录音和文字记录整理出来，方便大家转播和播放。今天的节目就结束了，再次感谢 Jennifer， 谢谢各位听众朋友们的参与，祝大家晚安，我们下期节目再见。